Welcome back to another episode of Leaving a Rich Legacy with Jessica. I am your host, Jessica Rich, and I'm super excited for my guest, Jolisa, today, just to share a little bit about herself and the work that she's doing. So, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
I am super excited as well. As I shared with you, as well as my community and platform, you all know this podcast really is a love letter to my younger self, shedding light on various topics that we do not often discuss in the Black and Brown community. And a lot of times, these topics really help us become a better version of ourselves, help us live to our full potential. And this is an opportunity to bring those topics forward to share with you all. So, Jolisa, I'm going to turn it over to you and just ask, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who is Jolisa?
Sometimes I feel like I struggle with that question because if I say who's Jolisa, the first thing I'm gonna be like, oh, I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm this, I'm that, and start naming all these hats I wear. And it's just like, okay, but that's not who Jolisa is. So I would say Jolisa is somebody who just really loves to have fun, loves to laugh, loves to really be adventurous and try new things. I'm all for trying new things and being adventurous. I'm from Colorado. So like the hiking and the exploring, I grew up doing like a lot of exploring, learning different things, hiking, snowboarding, different things like that. So I'm very adventurous. I'm very, very spontaneous. That gets me in trouble sometimes. But I'm one who be like very spontaneous. If like it's like, hey, let's go on a trip. I'm like, yep, I'm down. I'm gonna figure out how to make this trip work. But I'm very, very spontaneous. But I'm also a person who is very, very determined. And when I set my mind to something, there's no stopping me. I'm gonna figure out every which way. And if I fall, I'm gonna cry, but then I'm gonna get back up and say, okay, this is something that I really, really want. So I'm a very determined individual, but spontaneous and funny.
I love that you were able to identify like who you are beyond those hat that you wear because those hats that you wear because sometimes we attach ourselves to so many things, right? That we forget like who we truly are as an individual outside of all of that. Like you're still a human being. You're
You're
still,
right.
an individual outside of those things. So to be able to identify that, I think that is so powerful because sometimes we get so lost in the hats that we wear that
Mhm.
that's how we lose our identity. So love that, love that, love that.
Thank you.
So you're doing a lot of amazing work and I would love to know what inspired you to become a licensed clinical social worker and a mental health coach?
Thank you. Well, first of all, I have to say, like, me finding myself, that took a lot of work. And I'm still finding myself as I navigate through my 30s. I'm still trying to figure it all out, you know. But what really inspired me to become a licensed clinical social worker is my dad. His story, how he grew up, it really, really inspired me. Growing up, my dad experienced a lot of episodes with post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, being in the military, growing up in the foster care system. And a lot of the episodes that he experienced, I never understood as a child. So I'm like, well, why is my dad acting like this? Why does he have all this medication to take? What is all this medication that he's taking? Because we're talking about like loads of pills in this big container. And then there'll be times where he like sleeps a lot longer than usual. And we're like, as a kid, you're like, what is this? He wouldn't come to a lot of events growing up because the crowds, and he's not big on crowds and different things like that. So growing up, it's like, what's going on? And he told us like bits and pieces of his story of being shot, being abused, things he's seen in the military, things like that. But I just never understood what that meant. So, make a long story tolerable, fast forward, I went and got my bachelor's in psychology because I'm like, I want to learn about the brain. And then also a part of his story, and a part of, I would say, my family is my family grew up as foster parents. And a lot of kids will come in and out the house, and there was like a social worker there. And I'm like, what is a social worker? It's somebody who helps make connections, help people, connect to different services and things. I'm like, that sounds really cool. So then got my psychology degree. I found out social worker, you can do the therapy part and still give back to people. So I was like, bam, I'm gonna do LCSW. And LCSW is the highest one you can have after testing. So I was like, I'm gonna do the clinical work and study the brain, behaviors, all of that. Like a 2 for 1.
Okay, so I hear in that as well your personal experiences as a child and your relationship and observing your dad led you to this. And I know
Mhm.
that you work with children, right?
Mhm.
So was it you seeing those social workers coming in that inspired you to like want to work specifically, work with children as well?
Exactly. It was seeing the social workers come in. It was just me remembering when I was a child, like just how nobody helped me understand what my dad was going through. We didn't have therapy. I didn't have therapy ever growing up. I didn't have an understanding of PTSD, mental illness, anything like that. So I was just like, I would want somebody to be there to say, hey, this is what's possibly going on. What support do you need? Things along that line.
That's good. And I do know, right? Therapy has not always been positively received in our community, but it's so good to
Mhm.
see that it's growing now. So,
Mhm.
why do you feel it's important for parents or caregivers to create a space for children to talk to, whether it's a therapist or professionals like yourself?
'Cause I feel like it's an additional layer of support. I would first, and I always commend parents to be the one to talk with their kids because, create that safe environment for their kids and that support. But sometimes parents weren't given that. So they don't know how to bring that to their kid. So why not receive that additional support? And it takes a village to raise a kid. But it's like within that village, you can have a professional to help guide you through that village, as well as your church, because we grew up in, the church as well. But you can have the church, you can have your therapist, and you can still have, your family or who you choose to build your village with. So it's just an additional layer of support and an outside as well. Sometimes it's good for us to have that outside opinion, trusted opinion, first of all, to really help see us through in a safe, non-judgmental zone.
So, everything about this podcast and a lot of my platform is creating a legacy and breaking the generational patterns before us.
Mm.
And when I think about legacy and really focusing on the next generation, I think about building up self love, self worth, and their self esteem, because I think that plays a huge part in the success of individuals, as well as thinking about mental health. So, have you personally ever experienced, low self esteem?
Oh yes. Looking back, now that I'm an adult, looking back growing up, I feel like I always struggled with low self-esteem. And for me, what low self-esteem looked like was not fully believing in myself and digging deep into my potential. So I recall in one situation that I could recall was my family actually still teases me till this day about it, but it's something that I've learned from. So in high school, I remember I was a freshman on the basketball team. And I tried out for the basketball team. It was really good. And I remember as a freshman, I made varsity. And you would think a girl would be, super excited to be, top level only as a freshman just coming in. For me, I was like, no, I don't want to play varsity. I'm not as good as the older girls. I don't want people looking at me. And I just started like bashing myself. Like, no. So I really went to the coach and I was like, I don't want to play varsity. And they were like, okay. I like wholeheartedly was like, I don't want to play. I don't. I want to be on the freshman and I want to be on the JV team. Don't put me on varsity. And they put me on freshman and JV. And it was really because I was inside my head and I just said I wasn't good enough to be up there. I didn't see it in myself. Other people seen it in me, but I didn't see it in myself.
Wow. I think, in general, that could affect us in so many ways, that conversation with ourselves. Did it
Mm-hmm.
affect you in any other ways?
It affected me a lot with just the choices that I made. Like, oh, I'm not doing this or I'm not doing that because I'm not good enough or I'm not pretty enough or I don't look like somebody, other people. And I really struggled with my self-image because I laugh about it now, but you know how they say we have those ugly stages in our life where we're like goofy looking. So I felt like my goofy looking stage was a while. Like I wore glasses, I had a gap, so I was like real self-conscious about like my teeth and smiling, and I cover my mouth, and then with like my glasses, like I mean I'm still blind, so it was like I wouldn't wear my glasses, but then I couldn't see. So it's just like it was like a struggle because none of my teammates were wearing glasses. None of my, siblings or nobody at the time, they were wearing glasses. And it was like, here's me with these Coke bottle glasses. And it was just like, I felt like I really battled with my looks, which played a part in how I talk to myself.
I think, I feel like a lot of, especially younger adults, probably experience that and
Mm-hmm.
trying to go through it. So, and I'm sure adults experience it the same. Let me just clarify. It's
Mm-hmm.
probably not just, isolated to young adults. So, how can that type of thinking and having low self-esteem, how can it affect our mental health?
Gosh. The first thing that comes to mind is really just isolating yourself. And I actually see that a lot in our youth nowadays when they struggle with self-esteem, they actually isolate themselves. They don't want to be around anybody. So they'll lock themselves in their room, spend a lot of times in their room, um, and they become depressed. They become real anxious to be around, large crowds, go to school. I see a lot of our youth nowadays struggling with going to school because they struggle with low self-esteem and they don't look like their peers. They see themselves as weird and they, see themselves as unpopular, and they get bullied. And it can also lead to suicidal ideation and no longer wanting to live. And it just hurts because it's like now that we are, well, let me speak for myself. As an adult, I understand now it's okay to be different. It's okay for me not to look like this or look like, my peers and other people because I'm beautiful in my own way. But as a kid, it doesn't, kids act off of their emotions, so not fitting in with other kids or other kids talking about them, they're going off of emotions, not, logic and being different. It's okay to be different.
Yeah, I just hearing you say that um makes me think about social media,
Mm,
how it could potentially play a part, right? Because before, when I think about, and I'm sure when you grew up, we didn't get to compare ourselves to everyone across the world. It was just those
right.
immediate individuals that were in high school with us, middle school. So how does
Hmm.
social media play a part in that as well?
Oh my God, social media is a blessing and a curse all in one. But social media cyberbullying is major. It's big. Um, like you said, kids now have access to not just people in their community, but people all around the world. And here's social media portraying, oh, you're supposed to look like this, not like this, light skin, dark skin. things, hair is supposed to be long, like, it's just social media, your body's supposed to look like this. It plays a tremendous part with kids, and they struggle with body images, which can lead to eating disorders. And um, even a lot of kids actually feel more comfortable sometimes talking with people on social media or through these gamings. And they're like, oh, my friend is such and such on a game. And it's like, okay, well, is that person even real? You've never met this person. You've never had a conversation with this person, only over the game. So now they're connecting with, which again, it could sometimes be a blessing and a curse, because it's like, okay, but then they struggle with that social aspect when it comes to being in person, in the brick and mortar, in school or in activities and things like that. Because yeah, when they're in their room and they're playing those games on social media and things like that, they can talk and be themselves. But in a brick and mortar, they don't feel as comfortable with themselves, because now they're around and can see their peers and other people. But you can hide behind the game.
Mm, okay. So we talked about the social media aspect, just some of the struggles that kids experience. Being that dealt with low self-esteem, how did you overcome it?
It's something I find myself still overcoming, honestly, Jessica. I just figure I have to really be comfortable with myself and how I look. And one of the biggest things for me is making sure that my hair is done. That's one thing that helps me pour into myself, is making sure that my hair is done, making sure that I'm being true to who I am, because it's even beyond looks, like being true to who I am and making sure that I'm comfortable. And not, I don't want to say not focusing on nobody else being comfortable, but if I'm comfortable and true with myself, then I feel nobody else can tell me about myself. And it took work. It took me saying yes to things and getting involved in things, because the same thing happened to me in college, where I battled with low self-esteem and I missed out on things, and I had to learn from that, and I had to check myself and say, why, what's going on with me? Why do I feel this way? Why am I talking to myself this way? And it took talking to other people, getting my own therapist. I'm gonna be real with that. Being sure that I have my own therapist, but really just seeking within myself, like, what is making me feel this way when it comes to me having low self-esteem and not feeling good about myself.
So one, the hair is laid, okay? The hair is laid today. I love your braids.
This my
That is
birthday hair.
today your birthday?
Tomorrow.
Okay. Well, happy early birthday. So, Taurus season. Okay. My birthday is
Yes.
in 9 days. But yes, happy early
Yay!
birthday.
And happy early birthday to you as well.
Thank you. So I love the braids look absolutely amazing. The color looks great on you. So I had to say that when you mentioned that. And I appreciate you being honest about the fact that it is still a journey. I think when we think about like self-development, especially like our healing and mental health journey, some people think there's a destination. It's ongoing, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it's a process. It's to me, it feels like a lifelong journey where right now I'm not meeting with my therapist every 2 weeks like we used to. We're doing check-ins as needed, but I still need that support. So I
Mm-hmm.
love that you were honest about like you're still going through that and you have your own therapist. So I would love to hear from you from your perspective. Why is it important for you to have a therapist?
For me to have a therapist, because even though I'm still a therapist, I'm a person first, and I still have battles that I fight, on a personal level, and then to really help me let out what I have going on. Because again, I'm a person, and they say doctors need doctors. They do. And us therapists, we may be, trying therapy ourselves, but it's just like, again, bringing in another perspective, because I could be so tunnel vision sometimes, and bring in, maybe family or something, and they may not, they'll tell me what I need to hear sometimes, and they tell me things I don't want to hear. But just having somebody from the outside to really help me continue to develop those skills to be successful and for me to continue on this journey.
Okay. Love it. Very love, 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 love. And you're right, regardless of whatever position you're in, a doctor needs a doctor, a therapist needs a therapist. I think all the therapists that I've interacted with have shared that they have a therapist. So it's not outside of the norm for you all to need support as well.
Oh,
So
for sure. Because we're taking on other people's stuff. I don't want to say taking on, but as therapists, we can, feel what our clients are feeling. And then again, it's like, oh, well, we still have our own feelings and things that we're navigating through as well. So it's important for us to be able to express and release that as well.
absolutely. So you're still going through your journey of, focusing on yourself, right? Living to your full potential, as you mentioned earlier, with, just addressing your self-esteem and building yourself up. What are some strategies that you would recommend for parents or caregivers for children who may be experiencing low self-esteem? How can we build them up?
It's first how you talk to your child. I think that's the biggest one is really how you talk with them. And I've learned this as a parent myself, and just even reflecting back on my own childhood, I have to be mindful of how I talk with my kids because I feel I help create and build their inner voice and how they, talk to themselves. Because it's like, oh, well, my mom is talking to me like this, the person closest to me, then that's how I'm supposed to be talked to. And that means anybody can talk to me that way. And that's not true. So really, as an adult, first of all, you check in yourself. I had did a conversation earlier this week, and one of the moms was saying that a lot of the times when us as adults, when we feel things as parents, we take it out on our kids. And half the times we're not even irritated with our kids. We're irritated with something that happened at work, happened somewhere else. So for me, it's just really taking a step back and saying, okay, let me breathe, and then I will go and handle the situation with my kid. Because if I'm irritable, I'm upset, then I'm going to shout and scream and talk down on them, and then they're going to hold on to that and then begin to talk down on themselves and beat themselves up. So as adults, caregivers, parents, really just check yourself and watch how you are talking to your kid. And be sure to apologize to them. I think that's one of the hardest things us as adults can do is apologize and say we were wrong to our kids. And our kids need to know that. So I would say checking ourselves, but also creating a safe space for them to be able to come and talk to you about what's going on and how they're feeling, and not make it about you, but listening to what they are saying. Because it's hard growing up as a kid in this world nowadays. So that's my two biggest things that come to mind for that.
So I just got to dive deep just a little bit in a parent's apologizing,
Mm,
because a lot of adults now never experienced that growing up.
hmm
So they're trying to navigate, right? And some are very intentional about breaking those patterns. So can you just explain a little bit more why it's so important for kids to hear adults apologize when they're wrong, versus, just always pretending to be right?
Because what I'm learning through personally and professionally is that then kids know it's okay to make mistakes is the biggest thing is, yes, I messed up, and that's okay. Now, how are we going to move forward fixing it? It's the biggest thing that comes up in all around. And like you're absolutely right. A lot of us we didn't get that growing up from our parents. It's like I'm right, I'm wrong. I mean, I'm right, you're wrong. I'm not going to apologize. Whatever the case may be, and it's just like, dang, like this is where, the struggles of, self-esteem and other things come into place. But owning up and saying it's okay, I'm sorry, I was wrong, will then allow your kid to say, okay, I was wrong, I apologize, when it comes to building other relationships within their life, and then being able to apologize as well, because we model for our kids how to build relationships and things like that. So if we as adults, parents, can't do it, how do we expect our child to do it?
That's thank you for kind of digging deep into that because I hear a lot of my peers, talking about they were just always yelled at, right? You talked about kind of
Mhm.
that frustration. This may not be a good time for me to communicate with my child because I'm going through my own situations. But even like, I hear a lot of adults talk about how their parents still don't apologize. And
Mhm.
it's so important for parents to realize that there may be something that happened in a child's life, whether you're a kid, a teenager, or an adult, right? And their experiences, our experience is our experience. You can't take away from that. And if it's an
Right.
opportunity to apologize or you need clarity to understand and want to understand, then I think we should be more open because it will heal to the next generation, but then also could heal current adults because they need
Mhm.
that from their parents.
Mhm. Mhm. Most definitely. Breaking them generational curses.
Yeah.
It is not.
You mentioned talking to your children and how it could affect them talking to themselves. So the one thing I have heard and just do my own research is like we will never have a conversation. We will never have any a conversation more than we will have with ourselves. So we will talk to ourselves the most in our lifetime
Mhm.
because we have conversations all the time in our head. So you would never
Mhm.
talk to anyone else more than you talk to yourself. But then I recently heard someone mention a lot of what you hear is from someone in your life. So if you
Mhm.
had a parent or an adult that was talking to you negatively or positively, when you think about some of the things you hear in your mind, it could be from that individual. So when you talk about knowing as a parent how you speak to your children, it can have a lifetime effect with the conversations that they have in their head. So I'm so happy that you mentioned that because I
Mhm.
just recently found that out. And I was like, I hadn't
Mhm.
heard that, but I can see it.
Mhm.
I can absolutely see it.
Mhm. And it's true. And I'm not gonna be the one to be on here like I'm perfect. I don't yell at my kids because sometimes I do. It's like you get me there. But I have to be mindful of it. And that's when I go back and I apologize. And I tell my child, I'll be like, and especially my oldest, she's 9, getting ready to be 10. I talk with her and I say, mommy was upset. It wasn't your fault. I apologize. Like what do you need from me? And then that's where she's like, da 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 da. But it took a while because sometimes I would yell and then I wouldn't go back and apologize. And then it was one time I heard her like talking bad about herself. She's like, I can't do it. I can't do it. And I'm just like, what? Yes, 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 you can. She's like, no, I can't. So I was just like, oh my God. So to just see her talk negatively to herself out loud, I was just like where did that come from? And I had to take a step back and do some self-reflection because our kids learn from us what they see us doing. So I even have to be, I think that helped pour into my self-esteem as well, because if my kid sees me talking down on myself, telling me I can't do it, then how are they going to be able to do it?
So,
It's,
Jaleesa, we talked a lot about your work, what you're doing, how you're helping children and families as well. How do you think your journey of building yourself up and your self esteem has affected the work that you're doing now?
I feel like it allows me to have more empathy for kids growing up and experiencing low self-esteem. Now, I'm not going to say I sit here and give them like all the tools and things like that, because 9 times out of 10, they just really want to be heard. Excuse me. The kids just really want to be heard. They want somebody to talk to. So I don't, if it's appropriate, I may, share a little bit about my story. But for the most part, the kids just want to be heard. And this is what's going on. They don't even want to be told what to do. Some don't want to be told what to do, but to really just navigate and really just, help them come up with the tools and resources themselves so that they know, like, yes, I came up with this idea, yes, I came up with this, coping skills, excuse me. So just really helping guide them through that. So I can say with my experience, what I've been through has really allowed me the opportunity to create that space for these kids to come and talk, and even adults. Like, I'm not even just going to say the kids, the adults coming back and healing their inner child, because that's important too. It's extremely important because, the relationships and things that they, continuing to build. So I'm not just going to say this is for our young people, but for the adults as well.
So now I have to ask, because I am I am huge on that. Healing our younger self, the younger
Mm.
child. I think one thing that really stuck out to me with my first therapist was like, you have to let little Jessica know that y'all are okay. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, why do you feel it's important for us to heal our younger selves?
I love working with adults, first of all, on healing your inner child, because like little Jessica doesn't know she's okay. So big Jessica has to be there to hold her hand and say, look how far we've come. Look at what we've learned. Because at the time, you probably thought your younger self couldn't make it to where you are now. And it's like, yes, and you did. And it wasn't easy. You've learned a lot, you've lost a lot, but you're here and you're stronger. And at the time, you didn't know what you didn't know. And you can't blame yourself for that. So when a lot of the adults I work with come in, we talk through that and we work through that. And a lot of it is trauma, because I do work with trauma. So it's really helping them navigate, what they know now to what they didn't know. So writing that letter to their younger self. And that's why I just love your podcast and the name of it, because it is like, it's important for us to write letters to our younger selves, because a lot of the things that we do as adults now stem from what we had or didn't have as a child. So little Jessica's always going to be there, and little Jolisa's always going to be there, and little you listening is always going to be there. So how are you going to help them know that they're okay and walk hand in hand as you continue this journey?
Oh, powerful. And that letter to your younger self is even more powerful.
Mm-hmm. That's why I
Very
love it.
powerful. So, Jolisa, if you could, this is my favorite question of the podcast. So,
Good.
if you could have a conversation with your younger self, what would you tell her?
Whew. Hearing that question, it gets me emotional. I'm not gonna lie. It really gets me emotional. Um, I would tell her, oh, there's so much I would tell her. um, I would tell her that she is amazing just the way she is. And she does not have to be nobody else, because there's only one Jolisa, and she's amazing. And the people who she needs to be in her life will be there for her. She doesn't have to force anybody to be there. The people who would be there are going to be there, but she has to be there for herself first.
Mhm. I love it. Whew, yeah, that question is, it is one of my favorites because it is a moment of like self-reflection.
Mm-hmm.
And it also goes back to healing your younger child. Like, you're thinking about, like, what do I need? What did I need then, and what do I need now? So, love that. Well, Jaleesa, was there anything that we didn't get a chance to discuss that you would like to share with the viewers?
Um, I just want to share my favorite affirmation. And I feel like it sets with all of this. And I tell myself all the time that you are worthy of all good things. And I just love that affirmation because when you struggle with self-esteem, you feel that you're not worthy, you feel that you're not good enough. So I just want to tell everyone out there listening, you are worthy of all good things that come to you. Um, just show up as you. Just show up as you. Because you don't know who needs you to be you.
Yeah.
And that's what I've learned with as somebody who struggled with self-esteem. That's what I've learned, to just show up and be me, because I've been a blessing to someone, and that's all that matters.
Okay. Well, how can we connect with you?
You can connect with me. Oh my gosh, I'm still processing that question. Really, your inner child. So whew, give me a second, because that was a great question. um You can connect with me on Instagram at Hope Anchors the Soul 1712. You can also go to my website, hopeanchorsthesoul.com, where you will find my YouTube page as well as the Facebook page. So, yes, Hope
Awesome.
Anchors the Soul.
Well, I'll be sure to definitely link your information on the caption on YouTube so folks can connect with you. But Jolisa, thank you so much for, coming on here and being transparent, sharing your story, and helping us realize that, it's okay that if you are still in the process of healing yourself, building yourself up, it's not a destination, but then also how important it is to connect with children and creating the space for them as well. So I
Mhm.
appreciate you so much, and I look forward to connecting with you in the future.
Same. And Jessica, thank you so much for this opportunity. Continue to do great things. You are making changes throughout the community. So thank you so much for your time today in this wonderful podcast.
Thank you.
You're
Goodbye.
welcome. Bye.